Welcome to Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. You are going to hear the stories from the eclectic life of a guy who is a professional counselor, a family man, a SWAT team chaplain, outdoor enthusiast, a guy involved with ropes, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, a chaotic Jedi, and who is a recipient of an honorary doctorate from the University of Adversity. Using these stories, we take the facts lead to concepts, and from the concepts we make a variety of life applications. Just a caveat about the facts. Most of the time we will tell you the facts just the way it happened, but once in a while we'll give you the facts the way other people remember how it happened, and that usually includes a tablespoon of embellishment. No harm is meant, just good, clean fun for educational purposes. Please subscribe and share this with your friends or your enemies. It might help them to be better people if they listen. As always, we thank you for keeping up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Introducing the Bible degree with digital ministry. Paul used the marketplace and the synagogue to reach an expanded audience. We have access to the internet and social media. I once heard it said that when McDonald's introduced the drive-thru window, they did not change the Big Mac, only how it was delivered. Faulkner University is now offering a new digital ministry track for their Bible degree. Faulkner's degree provides training in understanding and teaching the gospel, alongside training that will allow students to create quality digital content. Opportunities for evangelism in the digital spaces is unlimited, and this is innovative ministry education for our contemporary culture. One of the instructors is a 2-time Emmy-winning former ESPN designer. Members of the Church of Christ could be eligible for the full tuition Jack Zorn Scholarship in order to pursue this special area of study. For more information, contact admissions at faulkner.edu. That is admissions at faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a digital partner with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. He came in from the woods, or as some would say, after spending a day in the field, and he was tired, he was weary, he was famished, he was exhausted, depending on the translation of the Bible that you read. He was the grandson of a powerful Middle Eastern sheik. Now, we don't like to call him that, but that's what Abraham was. He was a man of vast resources. He had flocks, he had herds, he had camels, servants, he had a private army, and his only son Isaac had inherited everything. Isaac's 2 sons, Jacob and Esau, would split the inheritance, with Esau being the older twin by mere moments. Esau was entitled to 2/3 and the blessing, and Jacob would get the rest. Esau had been hunting, Jacob had been cooking. Esau saw and no doubt smelled the red stew and simply asked his brother, and his brother, his name is Jacob, his name in Hebrew means supplanter, the one who grasped the heel, or in some traditions it means deceiver. He asked his brother, hey, can I have some of your red soup? And he wanted this soup simply because he was weary, faint, tired, or exhausted. And Jacob's reply was, you can have my soup if I can have your inheritance. Now, maybe he wasn't thinking, maybe his blood sugar was low and he was thinking badly, or maybe what he thought was, that's not really a thing. I can't not be the firstborn. You can't actually give up your birthright. But he was wrong. The writer of the book of Hebrews, the New Testament book that retells part of this story, says that when he wanted to change his mind, he found no way to get a redo, even though he sought it with bitterness and with tears. He was looking for some comfort, and he got a bad deal. I was tired. I was coming in from the woods, Marietta, Georgia, as it happens to be. As a traveling speaker, and I travel a lot, and I've traveled for a number of years, most of the time I feel okay. I go speak, and I run on autopilot. I get home. I even function pretty well the next day, and that next afternoon I usually crash. Now, the people who ask you to come and speak have already been incredibly nice to you simply by inviting you to come and speak. And they usually take into account that you are traveling, and they do their best to understand this and to accommodate you. Now, there's been a couple of examples where this was not the case, but for the most part, I'm pretty much a low maintenance guest anyway. One rare exception was I spoke at a church in Florence, Alabama. And it was one of those things where the speaking was spread out over an entire day. Normally, I like to speak at the Bible class. I like to speak at the worship, maybe do a lunch with the people, and then, an early afternoon session. And then that way I leave and I get home before dark, or at least it's not super, super, super late. Well, on this particular day, they had spread the thing out over an entire day. So I was going to speak at the Bible class hour. I was going to speak at the worship service hour. And then I was going to have to return and speak at the 6 o'clock hour. Services that morning ended, and people were leaving the building and shaking my hand, and we were talking, and people went to eat lunch, and people went to their houses. But apparently no one had given any thought as to what I was going to do for the next 6 hours. Nobody invited me to lunch. Nobody said, hey, come hang out at our house. Nobody said, hey, we're going to leave the church office open and you can just kind of hang out there and do whatever you do between now and 6 o'clock. There had been no discussion of any of that. And they walked out and drove away, and they just left me. I drove to a nearby park. I suspended my hammock. I changed clothes and went for a run. I returned to my hammock and read a novel that I had under the seat of my truck. And I stayed in my hammock until it was time to don my suit and preach again, cleaning up from my run in the state park public restroom. I went to Tennessee one time and spoke for Joey Farrell. And Joey was pretty nervous about my accommodations. I have been the guest speaker at a very large conference for the past 25 years. And the people who only know me from there get these weird ideas that I might be a celebrity, or I might be famous, or might have, they worry about not only my accommodations, where they're going to put me up, but oftentimes they have this real uncomfortable discussion about my speaking fees. I don't have a set speaking fee for churches. If a church invites me to go and I have the ability to go, I go and I speak, and whatever they do, they do. Whatever they don't do, they don't do. Now, my consulting business, I have a set fee. I have a set fee for when I do presentations and workshops for corporations, universities, for-profit groups, and even for nonprofit groups. But very, very rarely have I ever had a set fee for churches, because when a church is gracious enough to invite me to speak at an event, I try it all possible to go and do. And I don't care about their budget, and I really don't care about mine. Anyway, that being the case, I'm going to this small church in Tennessee, and Joey Farrell's going to be my host. But the only accommodations in the area was this very modest bed and breakfast. And modest is just that. They look like they'd taken an old nursing home and turned it into a bed and breakfast. Joey and I knew of each other, but we didn't actually know each other. And I think maybe he feared that I might have a little diva in me, or maybe have some green room requirements. I've gone to places to speak, and I've spent lots of Sunday afternoons at people's houses, and we ended up either watching football or me going out in the yard and doing tree climbing demonstrations or jujitsu. One time I was in northern Tennessee, and Nick Melton and I did both. We climbed trees with his boys, and then we did some jujitsu under a pavilion at a park while it was raining outside. Well, on this occasion, I drove in on a Friday night, and I spoke at the church, and then left the church building and went to the accommodations on Friday. And I spent the night, and then I showed back up on Saturday. And when I got there on Saturday, Joey met me at the entrance of the building and asked me about the accommodation. He asked me about the bed and breakfast. And I assured him, hey, man, the room was fine. And I even added, and the young man at the desk was very, very pleasant. He did seem a little preoccupied and maybe a little overly devoted to his mother. If you go by there, tell Norman that I had a very pleasant stay. And for just a moment, Joey's face registered that I knew he'd gotten my reference to Norman Bates. Well, Joey and I became good friends, and we tease each other a lot. So here I am on this trip, this most recent trip, and it had been a bit of a marathon. I spoke at 9:30, which is 8:30 Alabama time. I spoke at 9:30. At 10:30, we had dinner on the grounds. I did a 2:00 question and answer session, and then I had another service to speak at 5:00, and we really didn't take a break. Lunch was fabulous, and I had a good time just hanging out with the brethren between 3 and 5. But I had gotten to the church building in time to speak at the 9:30 hour, and I had not taken a break, taken a rest other than to eat lunch. And so by the time 6 p.m. and the end of the services arrived, I was tired. Now, I was 1 day shy of being out of surgery 3 weeks and only 16 days out of the hospital. And so I was unusually tired for my normal travel schedule. Well, church ended and I did some, talking to people and shook some hands. And I jumped into the tactical Toyota and I headed home like an old horse to the barn. Had the people there invited me to supper, I would have declined, because I found out that when you go out and eat, you spend it adds hours to your return trip. So I typically just say, hey, I'm going to get something on the road, and I was headed home on my return trip. Now, once you leave Marietta, Georgia, you better eat before you get to Turkey Mountain Road, because if you get to Turkey Mountain Road, there are no restaurants to speak of until you get to Scottsboro, Alabama. In spite of my continuous glucose monitor and it telling my wife that I had exceeded my carb limits for the day, I had already made the executive decision that on the way home, I was going to eat some Hunt Brothers pizza. I like gas station pizza and I like Hunt Brothers pizza. And so I'm driving through the night in Georgia, and the first place I stopped at had the Hunt Brothers pizza sign. They had the sign out, but they were out of pizza. Now, this is one of those gas stations that doesn't have a working restroom according to the sign, and no pizza in spite of the sign. So you can't believe anything these guys put on their sign. So I was tired. I was tired plus hungry. And oftentimes that creates a little irritation. I think that's a condition known as hangry. So I'm driving down the road some more. And after encountering my second lying Hunt Brothers pizza sign, I was resigned that I was either going to have to find a roller dog, a gas station burrito, or some leftover hobo potatoes at a deli. I got to Adairsville, Georgia, and I tried one more time. As I nosed into the parking spot, I saw a lady standing out in front of the door. She was wearing leggings, fuzzy Croc house shoes, and Walmart Flage fuzzy sweater. And she was in front of the entrance, and she was either burning a cigarette or practicing her ninja smoke screen skills. She and a gentleman were standing in front of the door having a conversation. I got out of the truck and I tried to slide in behind them, avoiding the prevailing smoke ninja assassins, and I entered the store. To my disappointment, the deli counter was as barren as the dating website karensonly.com. And I wandered around the store looking for something, and finally I placed a green and black, sugar-free, no-calorie Monster Energy drink can on the counter, and I looked up to see the Walmart Flage ninja lady was actually the cashier. I had wandered around the store long enough for her to finish her ninja training or her smoke break, and now she was inside ready to run the cash register, and she just casually said, "What were you looking for?" And I wearily replied, "I was just trying to find some hot food. I have some right here." And she produced a styrofoam container that had hot vegetable soup. She started and gestured to the man outside. He loves to cook and he brings me food when I have to be here all night. I can get an insulated coffee cup and you are welcome to have some of my soup. I will be happy to share. I have been given some incredible gifts. Someone helped pay for my college. Mr. Howard Culpepper gave me my supervision for my licensure practically for free. I had some guys take me on an all-expense-paid antelope hunt. I've been given shotguns, rifles, pistols, and knives. Jackie's given me so many incredible gifts. I've been given a bow. But this simplest of gifts And the extravagance behind it was something I was not prepared for. This was not given out of abundance of possessions, but out of the abundance of a heart. I do not think I look poor or homeless in the clothes that I wear to speak at churches. My dress slacks and my sport coat are not Armani, but they are not nice. My clothing didn't matter. My station in life didn't matter. My race didn't matter. None of it mattered. What mattered was that I said I wished I had something, or I thought I needed something. I'm just looking for some hot food. And it wasn't really a need. It was a creature comfort want. It was a psychological, I'll feel better if I get something warm on my way home. And she responded with, you can have my food. Not free food from a restaurant she was running where they had food in abundance. Not free food from a restaurant that she was working at. But the only food she would have for an all-night shift while manning a gas station in rural Georgia. And if I ate the other half of the soup, she'd go the other half of the night without any. Now, normally when one travels, we trade our money for the food we get to eat. Esau traded his father's inheritance and blessing for some hot soup. But she was trading her all-night comfort, the food she would have for the rest of the night, for my short-term convenience. She was willing to give up her food for the night so I could have a snack on a road trip. There's hot food in Mentone. There's hot food in Scottsboro. There's hot food in Gurley, and there would be hot food at my house. I was not starving. I was just looking for a little creature comfort. And the only hot food in a gas station in Adairsville, Georgia, was the only food she had. And she was willing to share it. Our temporary comforts are almost always the result of somebody else's long-term sacrifice. It is impossible to enumerate all the examples, but my life is full of them. In my home growing up, we'd invite friends to come home with us after church, and I began to notice that oftentimes we would sit down to eat lunch, and my mom often didn't eat what we ate. I would later discover that we didn't have enough food, and she did without the main entree so that our spontaneous guests could eat what we were eating, and she would do without. Every new pair of shoes was a pair of shoes mom or dad didn't have. And my bike and my baseball glove and the bunk beds we slept in is why my dad never owned a new or never owned an automatic shotgun. And it's not just limited to stuff. It's not just limited to the tangible things that we can wrap or unwrap, but it's gifts, it's lessons, it's opportunities, it's experiences we get to do because other people do without. They give, they sacrifice, they go without. This lady offered me her soup for my temporary comfort at the cost of her doing without food for the rest of the shift. I declined. Now, I didn't decline like you do when a kid who sits in front of you in church leans over the pew and offers you to share that lollipop or that teddygram they've been sucking on. But this was a gracious, sincere, appreciative no thank you. I can't possibly. I didn't want to spend the time it would take to sit down and eat soup at the counter. I didn't want to interfere with other customers that might come in. And I couldn't eat soup from a cup and drive, at least not on those back roads in Georgia. But it was more than that. It's like the time that David is looking at Bethlehem and the Philistine garrison is there. And David longingly says, oh, if I had a drink of the water from the well at Bethlehem. And three of his guys, they leave David's camp and they fight their way through the enemy lines and they dip water out of this well and they bring it back and present it to David, and David wouldn't drink it. He poured it out as an offering to the Lord, a tribute to the bravery, courage, loyalty, bravado, and panache of these warriors who not only served him, but served with him. And this lady's not a brother in arms. I'm not sure she's a brother or sister in Christ. This is just an absolute stranger, and we could not have been from more disparate worlds. And with complete transparency, this is a person that I probably judged by her appearance when I first pulled up. Our lives are full of unlikely people who gave to us at personal cost to themselves so that we could have temporary comfort or relief. Your dad carried you many times when you could walk but just didn't want to. Your parents did without so that you could have. Your parents didn't join, go, or belong so that we could be in scouts, dance, band, or sports. My daughter asked me one time, she said, "Dad, why do you only see old men driving Corvettes and Porsches?" And I told her, because when you're young enough to drive Corvettes and Carreras to be really cool, your children think they need bikes, cell phones, newer model Toyotas, and they need to play travel sports. And so only after your kids leave home can you afford Corvettes and Porsches. I did not eat any hot food on the way home. But I made the rest of the journey not only feeling full, but feeling warm. My stomach wasn't full, but my heart was. My eyes filled up a little bit as I thought about this total stranger who, judging just from appearance, could have asked me for money, food, or supplies. But she was willing to share what she had, and the only thing she knew about me was that I wanted warm food. And she could tell I didn't need it. I've never been mistaken for skinny. She knew it was just as simple as a want. She knew I wasn't starving. It was something I was looking for to make me feel better, probably just psychologically, not even physically. I was tired, but not exhausted. I didn't need it, not as an actual need, but simply I wanted the warmth of food as a comfort. She didn't question why I hadn't eaten. She didn't ask where I was going and pinpoint my route and say, well, now, if you go in that direction, then you can get hot food here, 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 and here. She offered me a very simple, basic human kindness in the form of comfort. And not out of an abundance, but out of simple opportunity. She had something she thought would make my life better. And in the smallest of ways. And it had nothing to do with who I was, because she did not know me. And it is quite possible that this is the only time we will ever see each other. I love to quote the line from the Spider-Man movies, with great power comes great responsibility. And I believe that. But so many of us do not believe we possess any great power. And I do not believe that. We all possess kindness, care, affection, goodness, empathy, time, effort. And one lady in Adairsville, Georgia, had all those things, plus a simple bowl of soup. A bowl of soup that was warm. And she also had a warm heart. It was the best soup I never had. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3 W's and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.